Hey Void, how you doing? Alright, so I took a couple days off, but that didn't mean I wasn't watching things, so my backlog is here again, so let's get down to it, shall we? Alright, well, finally finished out this collection with New Nightmare. Now, I'm pausing there because I'm always a little, normally when I name a film, if they have a name above the title, I scrap it. I don't do it. Bram Stoker's Dracula? No. I'll just call it Dracula. Or maybe, and if I need to differentiate it, I'll usually refer to it as the Coppola version. Same with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or anything with M. Night Shyamalan's name above it. No. Stephen King? Great, yeah, I know it's Stephen King's Pet Sematary. It can just be Pet Sematary. But for New Nightmare, I don't know actually whether I should be dropping the Wes Craven from it or not. Because technically Wes Craven's New Nightmare is kind of the plot of the movie. I mean, say that Wes Craven hasn't done anything for a while in this because he hasn't had any really scary dreams, because he usually bases his movies on his nightmares. Well, he's now has had a new nightmare and is now making a new script. And the fact that Wes Craven's having a new nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So, I'm a little torn. I usually still go New Nightmare, but this is the one that gives me pause. Okay, so, unlike the previous Nightmare on Elm Street ones, this one goes meta as hell. So, it stars, Heather Langenkamp as Heather Langenkamp, Wes Craven as Wes Craven, and Robert Englund as Freddy, and Robert Englund. So, it takes it takes place essentially in the real world, where Heather Langenkamp is an actress just who did the Freddy movies. And she's got her son who's been having some strange nightmares, and she's been receiving harassing phone calls, usually Freddy Krueger related. And, things are starting to get a little strange as, Wes Craven is now working on a new Freddy movie, and things just seem to be going strange. As life and art begin to, imitate each other. As essentially part of the premise here is Wes Craven's New Nightmare is about a entity that is evil and powerful, but can be trapped in a story. And one such entity was trapped in the Nightmare on Elm Street story, and has taken the form of Freddy Krueger. Well, now that the story is done, Freddy's dead, the entity is coming into our world, unless a new script can be written to contain it. And that's where we stand here. So, it's a very high concept movie. Execution is pretty good, but there's a few parts here that are a little... The execution isn't as good as it could have been. It's still very good, but it isn't perfect. So, I will say they did take a lot of cues out of Heather Langenkamp's life. She actually did have a stalker calling her, and they got her permission to use that as part of the story here. She is actually married to a visual effects artist and has a son. Now, her husband was offered the chance to play himself in the movie, but he did decline. But but the character is clearly inspired by him. Well, so the whole concept of that works very well. That works for me. As well as the movie goes on and reality and movie worlds start blurring. That's cool. My issue in this one actually more comes from Freddy himself. Now, they tried re-envisioning him as darker and more intimidating. So, but I don't think they pull it off very well. Now Freddy's got a trench coat, which 50-50 on the look. I don't mind the trench coat look, but, that's the one change that I do not mind. also giving him more of the demonic eyes. I'm fine with that. First part, let's talk about how swole Freddy suddenly got. They made him bulkier and broader, and he doesn't look right because of that. He looks stiff. It's like a guy shoved a bunch of potatoes in his leotard or something. It's the musculature just doesn't look right. Second, the hat, the coloration on it's weird green and it just looks funny. I'm sorry, it does. And next, let's talk about the new claw. This one they made like this weird bioorganic thing, and that was an actual claw, because they kind of make it more based on the entity that is being Freddy, which is okay, but it looks like a foam rubber arm. It doesn't look convincing. Now, at the very beginning, when someone's having a nightmare about making a new Freddy movie and they have this robotic claw, that one could have been cool. That one looked neat. I would have been actually down for that. And while they are trying to make Freddy less comedic and more intimidating, I don't know if they quite got it right, because there's a one-liner here or there, but Freddy, I think, was best at that in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Here, he's just not... He doesn't talk enough to do that. And his presence... Freddy's always been a talker. His presence here just doesn't feel quite right for it. I know it's because of the new direction they were trying to go, but for me, that part falls flat. And because that part falls flat, the rest of the movie does get shaky. A lot of the kills are... Well, I will say the kill of the babysitter that homaged the first kill in the first one, that one worked fine for me. But, the truck one, for example, where her husband gets killed, that one really... A lot of the kills, it was like someone falls asleep and then someone else gets killed. The rules aren't very clearly established for what's going on. I know it's Freddy trying to break into the real world, and a lot of that, I think, is when Heather Langenkamp's asleep. She is having a dream about what's happening to someone else, but it's not as well established as it could be, and leaves me with a few questions on how things are working there. What was working is her son. That part was good with him getting progressively creepy, or even acting like Freddy sometimes, where he tapes knives to his head. This is what the Dream Child should have done. The stuff with her son here was working. I mean, yeah, he's talking this cute little kid voice. Never sleep again. Which makes him sound like a baby Donald Duck sometimes. But it's never as bad as New York Ripper. So, yeah. Also, I do kind of like how the one lady who doesn't at the hospital who doesn't believe and wants to blame the horror movies on things. Well, she's clearly meant to be kind of set up as an antagonistic force and a heel. The actress does a really good job of portraying someone who is just honestly trying to help, even though she has to deliver some very uncomfortable situations. I wish we could have seen more of her reaction when she realizes there is something supernatural going on. So, the concept's great. The Freddy bits are the part that's fall apart a little bit for me, and that's what kills me with that one. So this one, I can give it 6 MacGuffins. I want to give it a 7 or an 8, really. But because of how flat Freddy falls in this one, I can only give it a 6. But still, it's definitely a good movie, and it's worth watching. I highly recommend watching New Nightmare, especially for the meta aspects alone. But, yeah, that's all I got on this one. And, I got a couple more coming, so see you guys soon.